shows are amusing me. We've all seen them, but some people just love them so much that they fall into a frenzy of addiction. Big Brother's a prime example of that. I mean, who wants to watch people for 24/7, 7 days a week? To me, that's boring. It's a gimmick that to me sounds like fun for maybe the first 30 minutes or so before I'm tired of the whole thing and just want to get back to good TV. Then again, there are those that cherish television programs like this and will never watch anything else. FUNHOUSE is a film that was released in 2019, which is next on my escape room mechanic series that mostly feels like an evil version of Big Brother, and I have some words about that. 8 of the most recent and popular stars of reality TV are kidnapped and forced to partake in a series called FUNHOUSE that's pretty much Big Brother. The audience at home watches these people throughout their lives and vote for who should be kicked off of the show. Only when this happens, they're not just kicked off, guys. They are killed off. Honestly, I was surprised to find this film because it touches on a subject that I've enjoyed watching in the past at least twice before. For me, the first thing that pops up in my head is the real-world movie, The Lost Season, which was a prank film created by MTV to fool people into believing the insanity that a crazed fan kidnapped the stars of the real world and forced them to be his puppets on his own ridiculous variation of the show that he made up entirely. I remember watching that movie when it first aired, thinking it was actually real, and I was losing my mind over it. The other thing that this movie reminded me of was Bad Wolf, which is an episode of Doctor Who that featured a deadly reality show game where, again, people are killed off if they don't make the cut. This film mimics those two in my opinion, so while I wouldn't necessarily call this film incredibly original, it was cool to see this idea in general as something more and more people are interested in making and watching. Also, interesting to note, the film stars yet another Skarsgård brother in the lead, specifically Walter Skarsgård, who I'm sure I've never seen in films before. You can tell while looking at him though that he is indeed a member of the family. He looks and sounds, I would say, more like his dad than I would say his brothers. And his acting ability in this is fine, it's nothing groundbreaking, but rather on par for a film of this magnitude and the type of budget this movie has. That's actually really important to note. If you're a fan of films that have a really good budget, this movie in no way, shape, or form is for you. It's definitely on the lower side of that, but it certainly attempts to utilize that budget effectively, from specific color and lighting choices for each contestant's rooms to their use specifically of practical effects. Believe it or not, anytime gore shows up in this movie, it looks incredibly classic and reminiscent of certain classic horror films that would also get really gooey with their gore. There's also a good number of shout-outs to other famous reality shows such as The Bachelorette, Jersey Shore, The Soup, and a few others. People who love to watch reality TV will definitely get a kick out of those shout-out moments. Everything from how these people act on a day-by-day basis to what they're willing to do for clout, votes, or numbers, to what desperation does to somebody in the light of impending death. All of that is done well enough to feel reminiscent of what's actually on TV, other than the violence, of course. Yet, this entire movie is undoubtedly flawed. It is nowhere near the worst thing that I've ever seen, or the worst it could be, but that's not to say that it's anywhere close to the best. Some of the visuals feel less than thematically appropriate for a film with this amount of gravity. The acting, as mentioned before, not the strongest it could be, and you can definitely tell. Though, one of the biggest negatives probably draws from the fact that the editors had absolutely no idea how to deal with transitions when it came to signaling a passage of time has occurred. So instead, it would do one of two transitions. One, it would either do a section of their version of The Soup, where some kind of comedian would crack some kind of joke, usually awfully written by the way, on the most recent events of the show, not realizing that it's actually all real and not just for entertainment. If they didn't do the Soup segment, the other transition option would clearly and arbitrarily throw in some random stock footage of like a time-lapse weather pattern, like a storm or something. I honestly don't get it. A good old-fashioned crossfade does wonders, by the way, for signaling a passage of time has occurred. All in all, it's a film that both surprised me and disappointed me. Certain parts of it could be seen as so bad that it's good, but because those moments weren't consistent, it can easily just be seen as just so bad, especially if you're not somebody that is used to seeing very many independent low-budget films. I have, however, and usually it's not so much about the lack of budget as it is about the utilization of those limitations that you have, which is ultimately more important. And Funhouse more or less did a good job utilizing the little budget that they had, which, if you're curious, was a little bit over $100,000. I'm gonna give this a rating of C-. That basically says, I had a good idea, but, it wasn't executed the best it could have been. I appreciate parts of it, but obviously not anywhere as good as the films that I had already mentioned in the past. But guys, have you seen Funhouse? Are you a fan of this type of movie? Are you a fan of B-horror films like this that kind of utilize the escape room mechanics? Or do you just think it's trash? Let me know. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with the next review. And until then, peace out.
Welcome to the Funhouse where shadows play, where fame and fortune led to a twisted display. Long swings